Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is the perfect time of the year because today we're going to talk about getting your business ready for the new year. So here we're ramping up for 2024. It's right around the corner, hard to believe, but we are going to today go over what you need to do to prepare for 2024. And again, you would do that starting now, very beginning in January. Obviously, we want to set you up for success for 2024. So that's what we're going to be doing today. My name is Jen Vale. I'm an Associate Director for Civitas Strategies, and we're really happy to be presenting here today with this really informative content for Decal. So glad that everyone can join us. All right, before we get started, we're just going to do a quick disclaimer that the information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited, and only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted. All right, so today's discussion. So we're going to look and see why looking back at the past year can help you prepare for the future. So in order to plan for the future, we need to know where a business is at financially so that your planning is relevant and on point with your goals for 2024. So let's take a look at 2023 to establish that base so we know where we're working from. We're going to go over some steps that you can take right now to prepare your business for the next year and what you're going to do then moving forward throughout next year. So it is important that you apply actionable steps for your 2024 planning to be successful. And we're going to walk you through the actions you'll take right now to ensure success. So we'll do that. And of course, at the very end, we're going to let you know where you can find more help and direct you to the wonderful resources that Decal provides to support your business. All right, so you know that people often make resolutions for the new year in their personal life, but what about their business affairs? So at the close of a fiscal year, so at the close of 2023, it's a great time to reflect back on the past, think about the immediate present, right? We want to think back to the beginning of the year, think about the immediate present, and then the future of your business. So whether you are an operation of one or an operation of 500, you can use this time now to properly close out your financial affairs from 2023 and plan for 2024. You want to keep in mind that you are the most knowledgeable person about your business. And while your experiences are still fresh, right, we're still in 2023, you can use the financial data that you have, as well as your lived experience, what you know you went through, what you remember throughout the year to prepare for next year. Assessing the state of your operations from the past year will help you develop a strategy. So how you can basically approach the short term going into next year and the midterm of your business. So, we're thinking past that first couple of months, but we're getting you on board for the first couple of months. And we know that there's so much economic uncertainty with COVID that still continues to this day. So informed preparation for next year is crucial to the success of your business. So let's move forward. Let's see what we're going to talk about today. All right, so looking back at your numbers, this is the time, right? This is the time to take a hard look at this past year, at 2023. So how did your business do financially in 2023? You might have a good sense of how your childcare business performed in 2023, but looking at the hard numbers is a great way to ground your thoughts and your feelings in facts, with facts, right? So you can say, hey, I had a great year. Do you know the actual numbers? Do we have everything set up and lined up? So this is the perfect time to take a look at that, those true hard numbers there. Now, if you did have a budget set up for 2023, this is the time that you're going to pull your budget and you're going to look at what you predicted, so what you budgeted for. And now we're going to take those true hard numbers and we're going to compare your actual revenue and expenses. So what we predicted and what actually occurred. So we're going to look at those two and look at them side by side. So if there are changes, we're going to basically use the information that we found from that comparison to help predict going into 2024, right? So there's a lot of information that we can find from that comparison there. So if there were changes, what accounted for those changes? Why did those changes occur? Were they positive? If they're positive, what great things happened that were positive that we can perhaps carry into 2024 to keep that momentum going? So we want to take a look at that. And we want to replicate, right? Well, what we basically did there. But if the results were negative, now is what we want to do. Now what we want to do is basically move the needle in a positive direction. So we're going to take a look at those negative numbers and see, hey, why did they happen and what can I do going into 2024 to prevent that from being the case throughout next year? So if you didn't maintain a budget, the next document that you could refer to would be your cash flow. So you can examine your cash flow throughout the year. You can look at your bank statements, right? When we talk about cash flow, we basically talk about the revenue coming in, income coming out, revenue coming in, expenses going out, and the bottom line profit. And we look at that across months, across quarters, making sure that we remain profitable. So just as we have a budget where we can compare what we anticipated versus what actually happened and how we spent our money, we can look and see that bottom line number using a cash flow. So you just want to see, you can use your bank account statements and see, where did you start and where did you end up? And how much of a difference is there? And again, if it's positive, what are we doing to continue that? If it's negative, what are we going to do to move in the right direction? What corrections are we going to make? So if you have a cash flow and didn't have a budget, I'd like you to consider if a budget would have been helpful in this when we provide, when you're going through this exercise. Would a budget have been helpful? If you don't have an accurate cash flow, would an accurate cash flow have been helpful? Both of those things would be very, very helpful to have and should be the foundation of your business practices. So just keep in mind that Decal does have tools to help you create that important financial foundation. So you definitely will want to visit the Decal site and see what it is that they have to share. All right, so now we're going to reflect on 2023, right? That very first step. And to do that, I'm going to ask you to set aside some quiet time to look at your records, reflect on your year. So this is your time for that analysis. You're going to set that time apart without interruptions when you really can take a good deep dive into the business. So you want to record your thoughts. It can be on paper, it could be in a Word document. You could even just speak them out loud to yourself, although you want to make sure that you remember what you've said. I'm a huge fan of talking to myself, to be honest, but you have to write it. Usually you would have to write it down. And you're going to write down, okay, you're going to ask yourself some questions and you're going to write down the answers to those questions. This is very, very reflective, right? So were you profitable? First question, number one. Great. We're going to record that. Were there differences, like we said when we were looking at that budget, between the actual and the planned figures? How did those differences impact you? Stop and think about that. Now, given that we have the budget, hopefully have the budget, the cash flow, we're looking at these numbers. Can you or should you, right? If things adjust your plan amounts for next year. So if you saw an increase in your budget in certain expenses and you know those expenses are not going to be reduced, perhaps it's an increase in your rent or an increase in utilities, make sure, right, as we're making that 2024 budget, that we're accommodating for that change. So I want you to think about adding those planned, adjusting your plan numbers to basically reflect any changes that did happen there. Now, once we've done that, the hard question, where did we overspend? So even if you came up and had a positive year, it's always a great idea to look at where you potentially could have overspent. So what were the circumstances that resulted in that overspending? You can stop and think back and say, were there emergencies that you hadn't planned for? We want to walk back through the year, through that thought process, and think about, where did I overspend? And then, given that, looking at our overall expenses, what could I possibly reduce? Because the idea, right, is to have the most positive 2024 financial year that we possibly could have. And sometimes that means we need to reduce our expenses. So we review and see where we overspent. We go to those expenses and think about some that aren't essential to the business. You might be surprised when you look at all those expenses. You may very well find something there that is not essential for the business. Maybe it's time to shop for better rates on something that you've been either purchasing or paying for that you haven't looked into, whether there is a less affordable, less expensive option and more affordable option. So this is the time to do that. We're going to set aside that time and we're going to ask ourselves these questions and we're going to write those answers down. All right, so by doing that, right now, we're going to got the information that we need, and we want to create a big picture, concise, but big picture view of last year, right? So we're going to take a step back from all those little details and look at the big picture and basically give us a summary of what we had to help us inform what's going to happen. So I'm going to give you some statements, also writing down the answers. I want you to think about these. You could have more than one circumstance for each of these statements, but you'll want to think about those that had the largest impact. So, all right, for a concise, large picture summary, big picture summary, first thing, financially, this, whatever it was, or if there's a couple things, went well for my business. We're going to record that. Financially, this did not go well for my business. So financially, where were the challenges there financially? Now, here's as I engaged in this exercise, I was most surprised by what? So what information did going through the exercise, asking yourself those questions, writing those questions down, looking at the hard numbers, was there anything you were surprised by? Is there anything that really took you to the point where you're like, wow, I didn't realize that happened? So you want to think about that. Given the information we have, we're going to think, if my business ran perfectly, how would my numbers be different? My numbers would be different in what way? Would it be an increase in revenue, an increase in enrollment? Would it be that you had more of a control on your expenses? What basically, if it ran perfectly, what would that profit look like? What would the expenses look like? How would they be different? So my numbers would be different in this way. And then I want to take these steps to make my numbers more closely reflect where I want my business to be. So we're going to talk over some steps now, but we're also keeping in mind all this hard work that you've done. So congratulations, you've performed a year-end review. You've laid the foundation for the short and midterm strategy for your business going into 2024. And before we look at the actual tangible steps, let's take this time, right? Before we get into steps, you're going to take that time and make sure that you've wrapped up this prior year properly. And that's why we do what we do. So you're going to do that for 2023. All right. So Easy steps, it's not painful. You've done a lot of work already. So these are some easy steps that you can take to ensure that your childcare business is on stable footing as you start that new fiscal year. So very important to back up your computer files, essential. If your devices were to stop working tomorrow, would you have other up-to-date copies of your files where, it's imperative. So it's imperative that you have all of your documents stored in two separate places. If it's locally on your computer, are you using a backup to the cloud or using an external drive? If you happen to be a person where everything is on paper, do you have copies of these important documents kept in two different places? So we want to make sure that you're thinking about backing up computer files as well as making sure that you have essentially taken care of having multiples of the information that you're going to need that are truly relevant there. And that's about record keeping, right? So now you've backed up your files, you've backed everything up. Do you have all of the documents that you're going to need to file this year's taxes? Because we want to think about 2023 taxes. So now's the time to identify those, right? Now's the time to pull out everything for your expenses, because now we want to prepare for tax season. This is the time. So to be ready to file your form 1099 you have to be ready to file your 1099 form if you had any contractors working within your business. You need to get that list of deductions, the allowable deductions, the list of expenses. And if you're a home child care provider, you do need to make sure that you have the proper calculation with time space, so you know how much business use of home you can deduct, right? So we back up our files, we make sure that we have the information we need, and then we start to prepare for tax season. That will save you quite a bit of stress and angst if you're able to do that now, right? We're reviewing everything at this point. Let's start to gather and get ready for tax season. So what are we going to do moving forward? So now is the time to strengthen the financial model of your childcare business. So budgeting, right? Create a monthly budget. If you don't have one, keep it updated. It doesn't have to be a year long to start. You'll see that if you didn't have a budget, starting monthly is a good place, right? We start with a monthly budget and we go ahead and we do the first month budget, what we are assuming we're going to be doing, what we've planned to have happen. Then we're going to, at the end of the month, we're going to look at those actuals, right? We talked about comparing. You're going to be doing that as a big picture for the year. But if you didn't have a budget going into 2024, this is the time that you're going to do that. You can start small with a month and build your budget out as you get more information. So think about that. Keeping it updated, very important. So doing those reviews of actual versus what you budgeted for and making a new budget for the following month, very, very important to do that on a regular basis. In terms of your cash flow, now we're going to develop a forecast, right? So a cash flow is that basically this is what I project my expenses are going to be. This is what I project my revenue is going to be. What's that bottom number? And of course, we're hoping that it's showing profitability. But if there's a difference between different months, if you start to think, okay, this is the way my business is in January, it's the way it is in February. Oh, wait, in March, usually traditionally in March, if I think back historically, there are changes. Okay, let's say those changes impact your revenue negatively. If they do, now's the time to say, hey, I may need to take some of the revenue that I was able to receive in January and February and apply that to March so that my cash flow remains steady. So that's about prediction. It's going to be adjusted because unfortunately we can't predict everything, but that's what a cash flow is. So you're going to basically project how much money you take in, how much money you expend each month, and look at how that money cash flows. Look at how that bottom line number, what does that look like from month to month? So I want to do that. All right. Next step, following step to strengthen your financial model of your business is to have a contingency plan. So contingency plan means that you're building a safety net into your budget to prepare for emergencies. So what does that look like? We talked about, cash flow, seeing how we can organize to make sure that we have a consistent and positive cash flow throughout the year. But we also need to make sure that we have money in reserve for emergencies, because we want to be able to address those without any harm to the business, without any stress. So we need to prepare. We need to have that emergency plan, that contingency plan. So we always need to think about what could potentially happen and how we would prepare for that. So think about, doesn't have to be terrible circumstances, but definitely think about emergencies that could occur. The next thing is, if you haven't been doing the budget, if you haven't been involved, if you've handed that off to someone else, now's the time for you to get involved. Take back that power if someone else is doing it for you. You are the manager of your business. You need to know that budget. You need to see all those individual expenses and know all those streams of revenue. Get involved. So this is the time to do it. And then we always want to focus on increasing revenue, right? That's key to the success of a business. So what you want to do is think about ways that you could boost your enrollment. So how can you increase your revenue? Have you also done a rate review recently? Think about that. How are we going to increase our revenue? So we're going to make sure we have a contingency plan. We're going to get involved in this, actively involved, and we're going to make sure that we have basically visited anything that needs to be addressed as far as increasing our enrollment. All right. So enrolling more children, let's hope, right? Fingers crossed, that's our goal, to make sure that we are at capacity. And what does it do? It improves the long-term sustainability of your business. There's no doubt. But there are steps that you need to take, right, to make sure that your business, steps that you can take to market your business, and steps that you can take to so you can market the business, and steps that you should be taking in terms of connecting with other providers, right? So how can we do this? How can we make sure that we're maximizing our potential for increasing our enrollment? Well, we can ask our staff or any of the current families that we have for enrollment. We can get a really good idea about social media, develop and expand that exposure that you have, your web presence, making sure that Google Locator, that you're on there, that you have a very strong presence on all of the social media apps, right? Being really, really aware of that. And we do talk about making sure that everyone, we want to reflect that we are being very careful about COVID, as we're always careful about anything. So you really could use in your marketing plan all of the great steps that you take to protect the children, right? So this is a time that you could potentially address the COVID, any COVID procedures that need to be done. I just wanted to take a moment. We are far along in the process, but if I do see that someone has joined us, and if you happen to be Spanish speaking, I hope that you would understand we're doing a simultaneous Spanish translation, and you can find that channel by clicking there's a global, looks like a globe. You can click on that and you can access the Spanish channel. So I'm sorry that I didn't mention that earlier. I didn't realize that we ended up having another participant. So you could, and this will be recorded in Spanish. So by all means, if you would prefer to have seen it in Spanish, you'll have that opportunity there. So we're going to do this marketing, right? It's important also that we connect with the community, that we connect with other providers. We could have providers that are going to retire. We could have providers that are getting ready to close their business. We could have providers that they're at capacity for a certain age group that you currently have available slots for. Speak to the community, talk to other childcare providers, right? Let's talk about moving forward with enrollment, boosting those enrollment numbers. All right, so staffing, right? Staffing is something that has been front of mind for so many childcare providers, a huge challenge. And attracting and retaining staff, it can be difficult, right? We know that it's difficult, but it is so necessary to grow your business. So as we talk about increasing that revenue, building enrollment, staffing obviously really does come into place. So come into play, excuse me. So we're going to talk about some steps now. Let's go over a few steps that you could take to attract new employees and to keep current employees satisfied. So if you're not offering benefits already, consider adding benefits for your employees. You could do bonuses. You could do temporary increases if there's some challenging circumstance going on within your organization. There are benefits such as health and retirement benefits that there are tax benefits, tax credits that a business can take. So kind of take a look in there. Don't just assume that you couldn't afford to participate or to offer those benefits to your employees. It could be even additional PTO, right? So just thinking about what you could offer employees to that add benefits really can help with attracting. So in terms of marketing your business to get employees and also retaining your employees there. You want always to create a culture where your employees feel valued and appreciated. So very, very important, right? We want everyone to want to come to work, to feel comfortable, to feel that they are really valued. So we want that. And we try, right? This is a goal, is to reduce stress for your employees whenever possible. So if they need to take time off of work, if you can make that possible, please do. We want to make sure that they're in as low of a stress environment. They're caring for children. It's pretty intense. So we want to see what we can do to help our employees with stress. Again, because we need staffing if we're going to be increasing our enrollment. And it always helps. Everyone appreciates a thank you. Showing gratitude to your employees and encouraging your staff to congratulate and thank one another. That's a very nice culture to create. So staffing, very important moving forward into this year to ensure your future success and your ongoing success. So we talked about, I apologize, I jumped ahead into my notes, but we're reducing stress for our employees. We're showing gratitude. It can't be stressed enough. So I apologize. I didn't realize that I had the same thing on the second slide. So again, reduce stress, make sure that they get time off if they need it. Show gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make it a very welcome and open environment to work in. Offer benefits, right? So those are things that we can do to help with our staffing. Now, I'm just curious if we have any questions. It does look like, unfortunately, one of our attendees did jump off. So oops, I have somebody popped back on. So if anyone attending has any questions, please, you can either put the question in the chat. We're going to monitor the chat. I don't know, Margaret, are there any questions there?
No, and it does look like our participant has left.
Okay. Okay, so given that, for the purpose of this recording, since we don't have any questions, let's move into a wrap up. All right, so thanks for your watching this webinar, pre-recorded webinar. Thank you so much for coming and joining us and watching this today. Before we close, I'd like to take a moment to review what we've accomplished during this presentation and our time together. So we discussed how looking back at your business's performance of 2023, how it's going to help you make informed decisions for 2024. So we have to be prepared to ask questions about 2023. Were we profitable? Were there differences between our actual numbers and what we had planned for? Do you need to adjust those numbers for next year? Think about those expenses. Where did I overspend? What expenses can I reduce? You really want to create that concise picture. Remember, we talked about building that overall picture of 2023 so that you know what it looked like for you financially, We're going to take that information. We're going to make sure that we've also backed up our files, gotten our documents in order, prepared for tax season. Going to think about our actions going forward in terms of our finances, budget, cash flow, having a contingency plan, becoming very active in all of the finances of your business, thinking about ways to increase your revenue, increase your enrollment, asking for referrals, social media, connecting with other childcare providers, right? So key to growing revenue. And then staffing. We want to make sure that our staff are, whether it could be our current staff or it could be as we recruit, we want to basically be offering the type of culture that welcomes employees to come in and ensures that they'll stay, whether it be through benefits, additional benefits, could be time off, health insurance, retirement, could be free childcare or a childcare discount could be very attractive there. You want your staff obviously to feel welcome and the culture to be that of one that everyone wants to work in. So you do what you do to reduce stress and ensure a happy staff. So that's important there. And all of those actions can set you up for a successful new year. So I do wish everyone the most successful financial 2024 that they can imagine. And hopefully using the steps that you learned here today, you will be able to do so. So I'm glad that you're viewing this. Thanks for joining us at a later time. All right. So just before we go, what I'd like to do is let you know that there are many more resources at the DeKalb Thriving Childcare Business Academy. At that website, you'll see that it's www.decal.ga.gov/thriving, but we've also included a QR code here. So if you're watching this, hold up your smartphone, use that QR code. It's going to take you directly to the website. Now, if you're seeing this around the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, keep in mind that there is a program that's called Small Study Group. You'll be able to register there. We're going to be doing that through August of 2024. So you could register for, we're going to be doing webinars through August of 2024. So these webinars, and then throughout the year, we're going to be doing these small study groups. When you go to the website, you'll be able to browse a library of self-study guides, register for the webinars, learn more about those small study groups. We can only have 10 participants per group. So it's a great opportunity for you to take a much deeper dive into topics that are relevant to running your childcare business. And the small size of those groups lets you get personalized care, help you with those issues that are affecting your business. And you do get, there's a wonderful benefit in that by participating, you do get 4 state-approved training hours. And there is actually a $300 stipend for each small study group track that you successfully complete. So I can't suggest enough that you go to the DeKalb website, look for all of these resources, look for and register for the webinars, and then look for the small study groups and get involved there, because it's not just a financial benefit. It's not just for those credits that you would receive, or training hours, excuse me, that you would receive, but it's about the information that you're going to learn. The small study groups are on financial foundations, recruiting and retaining staff, mitigating risk, sales and marketing, revenue streams, and growth. There's an awful lot there to be had in just by visiting the DeKalb site and then registering. Again, webinars, small study groups. Check out all the resources. Pretty much any topic that you could imagine related to childcare is available there. So I want to thank you for watching us today. And if you do have any questions, you can go to, let's just see here if I have anything else there. I do not, but what you can do is go to that DeKalb website and you'll see a contact me, and you can basically go there and ask any questions. Was there a link that we put in the chat, Margaret, for them to reach out for additional help? I'm not sure. I'll just take a look there. Well,
The
would you know?
link in the chat is shared for the additional resources. So once the recording of this becomes available, it'll be posted there on the resource page.
Fantastic. So everyone go to that resource page. Thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thanks so much. Take care.